You're listening to an interview from Salaam Gateway. How can Muslims as a community give zakat and sadaqah more strategically? Can one platform be a global zakat collector? These are questions the global Muslim community has been asking for many years. In 2007, an attempt was made to address these questions head-on with the establishment of the International Zakat Organization. It was formed as a body of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, or the OIC. The idea then was to collect zakat from member states of the OIC to build a fund to help the Muslim world. Unfortunately, this was never realized. Today, in 2018, the same questions are being asked, but their possible answers are backed by new technology and a different way of thinking. On the 18th of April, a new Zakat and Sadaqah platform called Human Crescent was launched at the Malaria Summit in London. The organization behind Human Crescent is a financial technology or fintech company called Finocracy, and it's working with two partners, Awakening Media and the Global Fund. Salaam Gateway spoke to Finocracy founder Mohammad Raafi Hossain in Dubai, and our first question to Raafi was simply, what is Human Crescent?
The Human Crescent is a strategic giving platform that lends voice and support to displaced populations around the world. Our approach is, looking at a number of things. One is looking at the way Muslims give today, whether that's giving zakat or giving sadaqah, whether that's giving digitally or offline. How can we support that giving? How can we enhance that giving? That's at one level. Number two is how can we make our giving as a community more strategic? So we hear of these figures that, zakat, for example, is $500 billion. Some figures are it's $1 trillion. Our own internal estimate from a Finocracy perspective is that it's $120 billion per year. Yet we find that if you look at the UN OCHA deficit, so the emergency funding deficit that the world faces every year, it's around $10 to $12 billion per year. So in essence, if you could cover that $10 to $12 billion, no person suffering from an emergency in a conflict area would go with their needs unmet. So 10 billion is nothing when you compare it to how much Muslims are giving. So the question then becomes, why is our giving not strategic? That's kind of the second layer. Third layer is then how do we, as a community, work to improve the delivery, the effectiveness, the efficiency and quality of our programs on the ground. And in the Human Crescent context, specifically around humanitarian response. So Human Crescent is kind of looking at all three of these areas. Now, going back to the first point, how do we give and how do we enhance our giving in this digital age? So normally if you ask a person, why isn't there a zakat catch-all digital platform in the world today? There isn't, right? That's solely dedicated. A lot of times the answer you'll get is, well, we like to give in person because we feel that empathetic connection with the person we're giving. It makes us feel that we've discharged our obligation in a dutiful manner. That's important. But as we'll see when we move to points 2 and 3, is that enough is a very interesting question. So what Human Crescent does is, we hear of all these numbers that there are 66 million displaced people around the world. They have X billions of dollars of needs. But if I were to say, 56 or 40 million or 80 million, would that really change a person's motivation or encouragement? Not really, because that's such a big number that the marginal value of that number really doesn't inspire us to give, which means that we need a different tactic. And that approach really is, how do we create a human-to-human connection, right? So when we think about a refugee or a displaced person, we think of them as an other, as opposed to as one of us. So what Human Crescent does is, it's quite simply, we actually go to the ground. So we go to displaced population contexts, whether they be refugee camps or other communities, and we look for individuals, which is everybody, but we collect stories that reflect what is similar between people like us on the other side of the screen and the people in these displaced population contexts. So not what is different, what is similar. So you could go to a refugee camp and someone will be like, my father came and he gave me a gift today. Our fathers come home and give us gifts too, right? That's a unique aspect. And that's what allows us to view the other as not the other, but as another human being that's part of our global family. And while this may seem very simple, it's extremely powerful. What we do with Human Crescent is very simple. there are many, many things that we can try to solve for. But our idea was that in this Ramadan and next Ramadan, between now and the end of next Ramadan in 2019, what is a goal that is ambitious, but at the same time is strategic in the sense that we can eradicate this problem, right? So we want to show our community that if we all gather together for a particular cause, we can actually solve it with whether it be our zakat or sadaqah. So what did we choose? We chose emergency health needs of 3 refugee contexts, 3 displaced population contexts. One being Rohingyans in Bangladesh, Syrians in Jordan, Lebanon, and Afghanis in Pakistan. And the idea is that we want to take out their emergency health needs with regards to exposure to deadly diseases such as TB, malaria, and in general want to strengthen their health systems to prevent any further cases. And if we were to raise $50 million, we would be able to support 1 million displaced people during this year and effectively take out this problem from these 3 contexts.
How did you come to pick the 3 projects for the Rohingyas, the Afghanis, and the Syrians? And how are you going to get to that goal of 50 million from Ramadan this year to Ramadan next year?
So in terms of the context, I think ultimately our goal is to go where the media and even funding doesn't go to. So I'll be very candid. I mean, one of the places we really wanted to fund at the beginning is a crisis happening in the Central African Republic with Muslim refugees fleeing to Cameroon. It's very, very sad. Not a lot of funding going in that direction. That's what we want to eventually move the platform to. Now, the timing, there are emergency crises happening right now. There is a funding gap in these 3 contexts that we're talking about. And there is a diaspora that should be more than able to meet the needs. That kind of philosophy went behind choosing these initial locations, as well as the fact that we felt very, very comfortable with the quality of projects that are happening on the ground and the ability to generate that connection between diaspora and these populations. Each of these locations has a huge diaspora, right? And we want to be able to show that together as a community, we can actually meet the needs. Now, when it comes to your second question, which was around how comfortable or how how do we come to that ambitious target and how comfortable we feel meeting it, we're actually very, very comfortable. In fact, we've had a number of conversations since our soft announcement at the Malaria Summit that really show that ultimately, when it comes to strategic coordinated giving, crowdfunding is very powerful. It generates political will. It does generate a certain level of funding, but what it really does, it creates institutional change. And we've had a number of institutions from leading Islamic banks to multilateral organizations to reputed foundations reach out to us saying that, we see what you're trying to do and we'll be happy to help you meet that target. So what's really going to happen is that it's going to be a family of both individual micro givers as well as institutions that come on the backs of it to meet our target. But we're very, I'm relatively hopeful / confident that we'll make it.
Can you explain how you're going to go on the ground if you're a digital platform?
Yeah, so our first year's partner, so we wanted to start with healthcare, health being the basic building block of human life. Our first partner is the Global Fund. And just quite shortly, the Global Fund is, in Bill Gates' own terms, one of the greatest developments that man has ever come together for, in the sense that they disperse $4.5 billion towards healthcare every single year, which is double the UN budget, to give you an idea of how big that is. It's backed by Gates Foundation, 35 governments. It's very lean, it's very effective, it's very efficient, because a lot of these health projects around ending TB, malaria, strengthening health systems, HIV, is rooted to the Global Fund. So they have a global purview of what are the best projects happening, all the proposals that come their way, and then they make disbursements. I'll give you an example. If you look at bed nets, right? Bed nets are still one of the strongest defenders against the spread of malaria. Now, a typical agency buys bed nets for like $2, $2.50 a piece. The Global Fund in its lifetime has bought 700 bed nets for around $1. 700 million bed nets, around $1, because they have the economy of scale working in their favor, because they're buying for the world, not buying for your local context. So we've chosen the Global Fund, and the beauty of it is that, number one, they support 3,600 organizations around the world, including the UN, all the way down to your mom and pop charity on the ground. They vet it, they audit it, they do anti-money laundering, they see if the money is being spent correctly, they collect the impact, all from a 700-person team sitting in Geneva, making it one of the most efficient organizations in the world and rated amongst the top 5 by UK's DFID. Why did we choose them? Well, Human Crescent, we don't take a percentage or a fee on our platform, so it's 100% as a public good to the community. The Global Fund, for doing all of their audits, anti-money laundering, day checks, the projects themselves, they also don't take a fee. So we keep the money going all the way to the end user, to the beneficiary and the organization supporting them. That's how we stay lean, at the same time adopt international best practice when it comes to projects that we're supporting with our funds.
You're well aware, of course, that the UNHCR has launched a platform as well to collect zakat,
Yes.
as well for disbursement to refugees. Are you in competition with this platform?
No, so UNHCR also accepts and does projects under the Global Fund umbrella. We are working with them in different contexts through the Global Fund. So it's in parallel, it's in tandem. Now, what we're doing on our platform is simply we're telling our users to be part of the story that eradicates emergency health needs for the 3 listed contexts I told you to solve them. Now, UNHCR has a mandate. It's refugees, it's annual, it's kind of in perpetuity. What we're saying is that let's take some of our community's funds, whether it be Zakat or Sadaqah, and try to take out this problem. And if we can do this in the next 14 months, next 13 months, then there are many, many bigger things that as a community on Human Crescent, we can aspire to.
How do you see Human Crescent being a global zakat collection when you have issues of sovereignty in terms of zakat collection?
Yeah. There are 2 ways to make a change, right? One is to go out and say, this is the alternative. 2 is to really start a dialogue. And the dialogue around zakat and its contemporary applicabilities has not happened to the nuance that I think many of us have desired. Hence the impact that we see, that is very fragmented, there's very little data, it's very opaque. Now what Human Crescent is trying to do is, at the very onset, is trying to instigate that, or let's say initiate that dialogue. So when it comes to refugees, yes, you're right, different governments have regulatory bodies that collect zakat. And there's been an age-long question on, is zakat for our local communities, or can we give it internationally? It's an age-old controversy. Now when it comes to refugees, who is their local responsible party? In a case like Rohingya, is it the Bangladeshi government? It is the Muslims in Burma? Whose responsibility are they? So you got a lot of people advocating for local zakat, but specifically for displaced populations, it's a very difficult proposition. There's a story with the Prophet ﷺ, when Salman al-Farsi came to Medina, he was obviously from Persia, and you had Muhajirs from Makkah and you had Ansar from Medina. And he came, and each of these 2 parties wanted to know, okay, is he going to be classified as Muhajir or is he going to be classified as a Ansar? And what did the Prophet ﷺ do? He said that, no, he's from my family. Right? So he immediately elevated his status as an asylum seeker, as a refugee. And when it comes to today's global refugee crisis, where above 80% of refugees are Muslim, it behooves the international Muslim community to take a stance, to at least lay a portion of their zakat. I'm not saying give all of their zakat, but a portion of their zakat for those who don't have a responsible caretaker, right? And I think it makes a lot of sense. And that's a discussion that needs to be had with regulators, zakat regulators, that needs to be had with multilaterals, with the average zakat giver, because at some level, if there's no global strategic dialogue around this, it's not going to get solved. And what Human Crescent allows us to do, first and foremost, is that a platform that allows us to have that dialogue. Because without this platform, yes, you can go and talk to everybody, but there's no actionable way of getting things done.
Is Human Crescent going to be available or accessible to everyone in every country? Because as you know, a lot of crowdfunding platforms, debt-based as well as equity, as well as strategic giving, have geographical limitations. For example, if I was in the UAE, I wouldn't be able to give to Cedars in the United Kingdom.
If you have an international credit card, in nearly all countries you will be able to participate in Human Crescent. That being said, I think every individual needs to check their own country's regulation on what it means to expatriate funds for a charitable cause.
So you still foresee some limitations as to who can access
There
the
are
platform?
some limitations. I mean, I think, can anyone give on a platform from a technology perspective? Yes. If you have an international credit card, you will be able to give from any country in the world. Now, I remember in a previous project that we used to do called Norway, as you know, we actually did a legal review. We took a sample of 16 countries around the world, and there are some countries that even within an international credit card, it's technically illegal to donate to a charitable cause outside of your country or outside of a cause that's regulated by your country's regulator. That has to be checked on an individual basis, but generally speaking, our target audience is diaspora abroad, and anyone in that context will be able to give.